When we started the design process, we didn't know if the show would be performed in the theater or not, so we started exactly as we used to. In the beginning of the conversation, the team was interested in an empty, inhospitable space, and it started exploring possibilities that could evoke a sense of fragmentation and physical separation. The director really likes the idea of bringing the industrial presence from the period to the set and aggressively embedding those rusty metal structures in the natural ground was very intentional to represent that controlling and brutal universe we were talking about.
This show is truly about the connections we make as humans to one another. Humans are born wired for connection. We connect to people, to the past, to the present, and in doing so, we leave a lasting imprint for the future. All these connections build who we are. After each connection is severed, we are left altered, forever changed. It is these connections that teach us, guide us, and leave us hopeful for the future. I wanted a physical representation of these connections in the costuming. It is almost like a map being drawn in front of you as you watch the show. Nikolai and Isaac interact and are forever changed by that interaction. So a little piece of Nikolai goes with Isaac, and a little piece of Isaac goes with Nikolai. So the costumes are like my own little conspiracy theory you can track throughout the show.
For my design of the show, I really wanted to lean into the covert nature of the play. What is reality? What is truth? Am I a good man or am I not? These were questions that kind of swirled around in my mind, and I came up with film noir. And I thought this would be perfect considering we weren't doing a live theater, we were going to be virtual, so I could make it a little more film than I normally would. And we really leaned into it with, especially with our transition videos and some of our scenes.
My sound design inspirations for this show are The Mist, Jurassic Park, and The Twilight Zone. For the music, the inspirations were the rock musicians that were influential in taking down the Berlin Wall and infiltrating Soviet Russia.
The most exciting part of this process was definitely experimenting with all this new technology and implementing it for virtual theater. We were able to create depth using green screens and manipulating the size and position of the actors. We found really cool effects to put into the stream to make it more exciting for everybody. And we found that there's a lot more that we can do with virtual theater that would take a lot more time and energy in traditional live theater.
The most exciting part of this process is when the actors moved into the pods because we were able to finally show them what they looked like in this virtual world that we created for them. And it did bring a more live theater feeling to it. They were able to walk around, they were almost able to interact with each other. And when they finally saw themselves on the set with each other, they started like high-fiving each other through the screen or doing other silly things with each other, but it was just amazing to see that actually work.
The biggest transition from live theater to the virtual format for me was working with the green and the blue screens. This meant I had to be very careful in the way I designed the costumes when it came to the use of color. I couldn't put a green costume in front of a green screen or a blue costume in front of a blue screen. So I had a decision to make early on. Which characters will wear blue and which characters will wear green? The characters wearing blue then could not wear green and vice versa. It has been a fun challenge to tackle this design in the virtual world.
Moving from a traditional theater production to a virtual one, for me personally, it was a great opportunity to learn a lot of different things that I never thought I would have opportunity to learn, but it was very interesting. And I think we as a team, even in a challenging time, being able to make theater happen, and more than that, being able to make something appealing and poetic as close as possible to traditional theater was worth every single struggle that we had during the process.
As a sound designer, my design was probably the least impacted. However, that doesn't mean that virtual theater doesn't come without its own set of unique challenges. In traditional theater, you have complete control over how the audience experiences your design. In virtual theater, you are at the mercy of each individual audience member's personal audio setup. So to combat this, I tried to create a design that is the most consistent across all different kinds of setups, so everyone can experience it the same way.
The transition to virtual theater was rough. Not only were we finding these new technologies, but we had to learn them in order to effectively put them into the stream and do them right. There was a lot of trial and error with OBS, with Zoom, and different video call softwares, with sound cues, virtual audio cables, green screens, lighting the green screens, getting actors correct instructions to set up their green screens, and eventually the pods in general. But it did pay off. We learned a lot, and we are very excited to show you guys what we've done. And also, when all this is said and done and the pandemic is over, it doesn't stop here. We are still learning, and it's going to be better next semester and beyond. And hopefully we can implement a lot of what we've learned into live theater someday.